Though it's been over a year since Jane Doe first launched, so much has changed about how she plays, who you'd want to pair with her, or where she's even strong. That said, one thing has remained true though about Jane all this time, and that's the fact that her ability to crit with anomalies is extremely special and unique. With today's video, I'll be going over why this, alongside being able to pick up Jane more easily through a selector, actually makes such a huge difference for Jane players and her performance as a whole. But to add to this, as usual, I'll be going over exactly what you need to make her as strong as possible, even in 3.1, what's changed with her new potential unlock and said buffs, and what her best teams, her best engines, best bosses, and so much more are. As a reminder, footage here will come from the creator beta server, so things are subject to change, and if you haven't already, subscribe to support the channel, and let me know what you're most excited for among the buffed characters or with anything related to 3.1. Without further ado though, let's get into it. As you're probably familiar with at this point, Jane is a greedy on-field anomaly DPS who builds her gauge, enters the passion state, and maintains this for as long as possible through her enhanced basic attacks as she gains additional stats while in said enhanced state. Unlike other characters who frequently rotate in and out of their enhanced states though, Jane looks to extend this as often as possible and also stay on field at the same time. However, after triggering assault, she does technically swap off of field to let another anomaly agent trigger disorder, and this makes partners like Vivian, Bernice, and even sometimes Yanagi stronger options, while newer pairings like Jane and Alice do also allow her to function as a secondary DPS by enabling physical crits for her teammates. This is also true for the newest release in Zenless, Remiel, where Jane also acts as somewhat of a battery or resource charger for Remiel rather than being the star of the show. To understand why Jane is still relevant and so strong though, let's break down her kit and what's changed with her new potential unlock. As we touched on earlier, Jane's unique mechanic revolves around her passion state. She builds a passion stream whenever she triggers a perfect dodge, defensive assists, or deals damage to enemies, but once this passion meter reaches max, Jane enters the passion state, enhancing her overall damage. While in said state, Jane's physical anomaly buildup is increased by 25%, and to add to this, for every point of anomaly proficiency that she has above 120, she gains 2 attack up to a max of 600. Now, while she's in this enhanced passion state though, Jane's damaging skills will consume her resource bar, but she can then restore this through perfect dodges and defensive assists, though she will inevitably leave the state once her passion stream / meter is actually gone. As for Jane's core passive, this is what applies the gnawed state debuff to enemies when she attacks them. While an enemy is gnawed though, triggering assault or the physical anomaly will also cause flinch, with its duration extended by 5 seconds. But on top of all this, and what's most notable about this ability though, is that assault will then gain the ability to crit against gnawed targets, starting at a base of 40 crit rate and 50 crit damage. If 40 crit sounds kind of low though, worry not, as this further scales with her anomaly proficiency, increasing by 0.16 per point. To reach the max 100% crit rate on Jane Doe's assault damage, you therefore need 375 AP during combat. However, pushing for 420 is actually what's recommended if you're looking to max her attack increase, which we touched on earlier. Her additional ability activates when paired with an anomaly agent or a public security faction member, and when active, this will increase her physical anomaly buildup rate by 20%, with an additional 15% when enemies are already affected by an anomaly. Jane's basic attack is a 6-hit combo that deals physical damage, but after her buff, the 6th hit is now classified as a dash attack, which is nice for maintaining the passive of her signature W engine. When Jane enters the passion state though, she also gains access to salto jump by holding her basic, and this causes her to spin rapidly, applying a decent amount of physical anomaly. Another important detail though is using this spin will also allow you to restore her passion meter with even greater effect if you use it after a perfect dodge. In terms of her EX special though, this is a pretty normal attack where it simply applies a decent amount of physical anomaly, but new to the skill post potential unlock is also this being classified as a dash attack, which again only adds to more uptime for her W engine. While in the passion state though, Jane also has unlocked a new EX special known as Aerial Sweep Onslaught, and this is a stronger version of her current EX special, which she unlocks with her first potential. Like her original EX special though, this pretty much just applies a decent amount of physical anomaly and is also treated as a dash attack. Regarding Jane's dodge and assist abilities, these are unchanged from her buff, but where formerly you were more reliant on using something like her dodge in order to maintain her W engine, this really isn't so much the case anymore, as again, a lot of her abilities are now categorized as dash attack. As for Jane's chain attack, this is pretty nice as it does apply a decent amount of anomaly too, but at the same time, this will also grant her max of her resource meter and also put her into the enhanced passion state if she already isn't in it. I'd also like to point out that giving up one of your other agent's chain attacks so that you can use 2 of Jane's chain attacks back to back is actually incredibly useful, as really you do apply a lot of anomaly, especially if you use 2 of these chain attacks back to back. Lastly, and similar to her chain attack, her ultimate does apply a lot of anomaly, and it also grants her max passion stream and puts her into the passion state too. Now, as for the the added stats that you gain with her potential though. For potential levels 2 through 6, each time that Jane triggers assault, her crit damage increases by 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30% respectively, which of course is a nice amount of damage. As for skill priority, you'll upgrade Jane's core skill first, then prioritize her ultimate, and after this, her EX special, basic attack, and dodge can all be leveled evenly, with her assist being last. Now let's move to Jane's combos, though the gameplay guide I'll be describing first is more for Jane as a dedicated on-field DPS, as otherwise you're basically just using Jane's EX special and ultimate off cooldown to apply anomalies for Remiel's passive, or doing something like applying the nod state to one of Alice's targets so that she can crit. To start though, you'll use your support or buff agent's ultimate, ideally right before the boss is stunned at 95 to 97 days. You'll swap to Jane, you'll use Jane's Saltra jump but swap off right before triggering the stun window. You'll swap to another agent to trigger stun, use Jane's chain attack, cancel this chain attack, swap to another agent to trigger stun, use Jane's second chain attack, use Jane's EX special twice, swap to another support or buffer, ideally use the other agent's ultimate or any EX specials that they have up, and then swap back to Jane and finish with Jane's ultimate. Now, though this is more of a set of goals rather than a hard set rotation, as this does change basically based on the agent that you use her with, another very important detail to keep in mind here though is that ideally you'd like to avoid overcapping on anomaly buildup when you can, as otherwise this is just wasted anomaly or disorder procs on a target. Now let's move to Jane's build and what's changed with version 3.1. To start, Jane's signature, Sharpened Stinger, is still very strong as it provides 90 anomaly proficiency as its main stat, and its passive grants her a stack of Predatory Instinct whenever she performs a dash attack, stacking up to 3 times, with each stack increasing her physical damage by 12%. She also gains max stacks instantly when entering the battlefield or triggering a perfect dodge, and at full stacks her anomaly buildup rate is further increased by 40%. Now, despite likely thinking that this is easily her best option, Jane has real competition with her signature in the form of Practice Perfection, which is Alice's signature, as it offers 30% attack main stat, its passive increases her anomaly mastery by 60, and whenever she applies assault, her physical damage is increased by 20%, stacking up to 2 times. That said, though Practice Perfection here is very strong, with the addition of Jane's signature to the W engine shop, this actually ends up being much stronger, especially if you're able to get it at rank 5 eventually, and since of course you aren't able to do this for Practice Perfection, there is still an argument to continue using her signature, especially if you end up using Alice and Jane together. That said, in terms of performance, both these engines are very strong alongside Jane, and this is so much the case that the difference in score is pretty dependent on the boss or the lineup, as sometimes Practice Perfection is much better or slightly worse. Another option here of course is Angel in the Shell, which is mainly used as a stat stick. This does provide 30% anomaly mastery as its main stat and an additional 90 AP through its passive, and this again makes it quite strong for Jane's damage, as most characters in general from the anomaly category do appreciate anomaly mastery and anomaly proficiency. Performance wise though, this does end up being about 8% worse than her signature or Practice Perfection, depending on which you see as the best option. But next we have Fusion Compiler, which is also pretty strong as it grants 24% pen ratio, and its passive increases attack by 12% with an added 25 AP per stack with a max of 3 stacks after using her EX special. That said though, this is still 23% worse than her signature, though of course you could get additional copies of this through the W engine shop. Finally though, for a more accessible option, Weeping Gemini is still strong, as the stats and its craftability at the gadget store is very valuable. That said, this still provides 25% attack as its main stat, and whenever any squad member inflicts an attribute anomaly, Jane will gain 48 AP per stack, stacking up to 4 times, making it an excellent free-to-play option, and only being about 13% worse than her signature. Jane's best 4-piece set is Fanged Metal. Its 2-piece effect increases physical damage by 10%, while the 4-piece effect increases her damage by 35% whenever any squad member inflicts assault on enemies. 2-piece set-wise though, Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz are definitely preferred to increase her anomaly proficiency, but alternatives like Phaethon's Melody, Whitewater Ballad, Puffer Electro, Hormone Punk, and of course Astro Voice are all definitely usable depending on your available stats. As for main stats, you'll prioritize anomaly proficiency in slot 4, physical damage bonus slot 5, attack percent or pen ratio as alternatives to this, and of course anomaly mastery in slot 6. As for substats, you'll prioritize anomaly proficiency first, followed by attack percent, then flat attack and flat pen. Stat wise though, you're looking for around 2400 attack, 420 anomaly proficiency to cap out her core passive, and then around 192 to 204 anomaly mastery depending on your 2-piece set. Now let's move to Jane's new best teammates, what to expect with the newest releases of 3.1 and 3.0, including Valina and Remiel, and which combos are strongest if you're looking to score high with Jane right now. Within triple anomaly setups, Jane performs best by constantly triggering assault and then enabling either procs from other characters, building resources for other agents, or some combination of the two. With this, the strongest variation is Jane with Valina and Remiel, reaching a 34,100 in Shiyu defense and 40,500 in Deadly Assault, followed closely behind by Jane with Alice and Remiel at 35,700 and 39,000. Other budget options like Piper are also still pretty strong here, but the team does lack, especially if the enemy is too aggressive, as Piper does spend a decent amount of time simply holding down her EX special, and she takes damage while doing so. Double Anomaly teams are also pretty strong as well, and this normally features Jane with an additional Anomaly agent and one strong support. Jane, Valina, and Yuzuha as a result led this category with a 35,600 in Shiyu defense, though their Deadly Assault performance did dip to a 26,000 due to fewer disorder procs. Variants here where Alice or Bernice replace one of these characters does also remain viable, but it shows a noticeable decline as well, suggesting again that while double Anomaly teams are strong, triple Anomaly, especially with the likes of Valina and Remiel, are really the top of the top. In a single Anomaly team though, Jane takes on the role of more of a hyper carry, but this also resulted in a clear drop in overall performance. Teams like Jane with Nangongyu and Yuzuha still reached a 25,800 in Shiyu defense and a 22,000 in Deadly Assault, but this did also decline with other variations that I tested. Of course, now while this is still usable, these teams further highlighted again Jane's reliance on one or maybe even more Anomaly agents on her team to actually maximize her total damage. Now at this point, you might be interested to know how Jane specifically performs compared to her physical agent peers like Alice and Piper, and I have some thoughts and findings on this here. Compared to other lineups, Jane at P6 is easily one of the most balanced, solid feeling, and also the least dependent on Remiel. However, as it stands, she also happens to be tied for the second best physical Anomaly when compared with Remiel. With Remiel, Jane at P6 scored a 34,900 in Shiyu and a 40,500 in Deadly Assault, putting her ahead of her Yuzuha variation in Deadly Assault by about 16,000 points, but by comparison, Alice had a jump from 30.1 to 32k to 41.3 and 49.7, making this the highest improvement in score from the swap. On that note, Piper also saw a pretty large increase too, improving from 32 and 22.7k to 45.4 and 36.4, which was especially impressive given again she's an A rank. Now overall, it's clear that the performance of Jane and Piper are pretty similar even post buff, and though I normally leave things at, well, who cares, as Alice is clearly better than the both of them, the reality is that Jane being offered as a free option from a selector suggests that in the future she may continue to become even more accessible, and to that end, once or if you are ever able to reach Jane at M2 alongside a core of Valina and Remiel, she actually ends up being very competitive to some of the strongest Anomaly teams in the game. Now let's move to Jane's Mindscapes, and yes, while these are pretty significant for performance, what's most interesting about this is that Jane will be available and pickable from the 3.1 anniversary selector, and while normally this would be nice to have just in terms of being able to get a single copy of Jane, those who decided to pull extra copies of Jane initially in the past can actually get closer to her second Mindscape, which almost feels like it's on the same tier as some of the other agents' 6th level Mindscapes instead. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves yet though. To start, Jane's first Mindscape increases her Salcho jump stack by 1, and it also increases her physical Anomaly buildup rate while she's in the Passion state. Her M2 allows Jane to ignore a portion of the enemy's defense while they're in the Nod state, and when they're either attacked by Jane or affected by an assault by any teammate. That said, this Mindscape also increases the crit damage of her assaults, and as usual, this is always huge value. Now, this should already go without saying, but reaching M2 for this ignore defense and the extra crit damage is already insane, but add the additional Anomaly buildup that you'd get by having her M1 too, and this is truly an insane breakpoint for her. As for Jane's fourth Mindscape, this provides a team-wide buff, increasing all squad members' attribute Anomaly damage whenever anyone triggers an assault or disorder. But lastly, her sixth Mindscape increases her crit rate and crit damage while in the Passion state, and she also gains immediate max Passion stream and enters the Passion state whenever any teammate inflicts assault. Now, if this assault crits though, Jane will also follow up with additional physical damage that scales with her AP, but to be clear, this increase to crit rate and crit damage does not affect the crit multipliers of her assault that can now crit. This actually literally gives her crit rate and crit damage to her basic attacks and abilities, which again is not the same as what you're currently getting from her core passive and is not as impactful, unfortunately. Now, based on the high praise that you just heard about Jane's Mindscapes, you may be thinking that high investment into Jane is good value, but admittedly, again, beyond her M1 and M2, which do add a rough 24 and 40% damage to Jane's teams, there really isn't much left for her at M4 and M6. In fact, the damage increase from M0 to M2 is actually similar, if not actually higher than what you'd gain from M2 to M6. That's kind of crazy. That said, if you're still planning on investing highly into her, I'd still stop at no higher than M2. If you're curious about whether her signature or M1 is better value though, this is where things get much tougher. The reason for this again is because Sharpened Stinger is technically available from the W Engine shop, and though Jane's M1 is technically nothing insane either, neither of these feel particularly must-have, though it's worth considering again that getting closer to M2 or getting closer to rank 5 on her signature are both technically also valuable breakpoints depending on which you're closer to. Now let's move to Jane's pros and cons. For pros, she has lots of mobility, she's very fast and has consistent physical anomaly buildup, she can cause any assault to crit, and this is an additional multiplier that wasn't originally available to basically any anomaly character at the time of her release. Her damage is pretty consistent regardless if she's in or out of a stun window, and she could also be used as a sole DPS or alongside other anomaly characters like Remiel, Vivian, etc., giving her decent team building flexibility and future potential. Now, as for her cons though, if she isn't taking advantage of her chain attack or her ultimate, this can actually force Jane to take a decent amount of time on field to actually enter her enhanced state. To add to this, she can also sometimes lose meaningful damage due to the cooldown on her anomaly trigger, and in general how much anomaly she actually applies. Finally though, she does also feel much more dependent on boss matchup and buffs compared to other agents, but with all the new characters that are being released anomaly wise, this shouldn't be as big a deal as you'd think. Now, if you're here watching this video, you're likely on the fence about who you should take from the 3.1 anniversary selector, and I don't blame you. I'd also be very curious about how Jane has aged since her previous banners and initial release. That said, even post potential unlock, Jane's performance feels pretty similar to what she had before, with the addition of a few thousand points here and there, and I guess the ability to pay less attention to the stacks on her W engine if that was formerly annoying. However, though the changes to Jane with P6 alone weren't absolutely mind-breakingly crazy, combining this with her M2, Velina and Remiel do actually create such a disgusting combo in terms of damage when paired alongside M2 Jane. So with this, if you're a fan of Jane and willing to invest long-term into her, both regarding her Mindscapes and best partners, this is a character that I'd actually consider picking from the selector and otherwise pick up in general if I were technically able to re-pull for her. However, as this really isn't the case and M0 P6 Jane is much different than something like M2, I definitely consider holding off if you aren't fully invested in Jane for the future. Thanks again for watching though guys, and I personally am a huge fan of everything that Jane has to offer. Good luck with your pulls and everything related to 3.1. I'll see you all next time. Take care.